Hi, I'm Byron. I'm one of the game designers on Stellaris. Today I'm going to walk you through a brief summary of Arkships. For the Nomads DLC, we wanted to ensure that nomadic empires didn't need to worry about planetary colonies and all the baggage that comes alongside them. So we've introduced that they have Arkships, which are simultaneously carrying the colony and their population, the buildings and districts that provide jobs, and a fair amount of their economic powerhouse. In addition, these also function as shipyards and pseudo-star bases. They can be upgraded with modules and additional components to add more functionality to them, and they function as powerful military fleets in themselves, though primarily armed with hangar bays. As nomadic empires advance through the tech tree, they'll be able to construct new Arkships, different types of Arkships with unique aspects, and upgrade the Arkships that they have. The three types of Arkships that they have access to are, broadly speaking, civilian, scientific, and military. The civilian Arkships focus on resource collection. Scientific Arkships focus on surveying, discovering anomalies, and charting hyperlanes. Military Arkships don't have any unique features to say, but they do have more guns than the civilian or scientific Arkships. This is fairly important, as Arkships are the lifeblood of a nomadic empire. If you lose all your Arkships, your empire ceases to exist. Building on the special fleet actions that we used for the Behemoth in Biogenesis, Arkships have a wide range of fleet actions that they can carry out, ranging from surveying. Much like a science ship, Arkships can survey unsurveyed systems, but they cannot explore archaeological sites or anomalies. Those are deemed a bit too dangerous to risk your entire population, especially when some of the more dangerous anomalies might have a dimensional horror pop out, and you don't really want your entire civilization to be facing one of those. However, as Arkships get upgraded, scientific Arkships in particular, they get access to deep scanning and subspace imaging. Deep scanning allows them to resurvey an already surveyed planetary body in the chance of finding new anomalies or dig sites or resources, or resource caches that may have been left behind by previous civilizations. Subspace imaging does this for an entire system in the blink of an eye, but has the chance of discovering new hyperlanes or uncharted wormholes, which broadens the map. To power the nomadic economy, Arkships and their child logistic ships have access to harvesting actions. Harvest resources, the most basic of these, which allows them to harvest resources from planetary deposits, leaving them somewhat barren for the next few decades. As prospectors resurvey the planet and such, they will discover new sources of these resources so the deposit isn't permanently depleted. Planetary strip mining does this on a larger scale, extracting even more resources. The final tier of this, planetary reprocessing, turns the entire planet into a lump sum of resources, leaves it as a shattered world for whichever empire this happens to be in the territory of. Depending on your relations with this empire and if they allow you to harvest resources, things might get soured and they might feeling a bit upset with you about, well, strip mining an entire planetary body that their economy was dependent upon. Do this with caution. Much like construction ships for regular empires, both Arkships and logistic ships can build megastructures, which is useful for constructing your way stations, or building new Arkships, which are built using the megastructure menu, or setting up hyper relays, arc furnaces, Dyson swarms in the systems of friendly empires. Two of the more interesting abilities that Arkships get access to through later upgrades on their spinal mounts of the final tier of Arkship are the Exodus Jump and Stellar Ignition. The Exodus Jump allows an Arkship to rip a hole in time and space and jump the entire fleet and any other friendly ships from one side of the galaxy to the other in an instant. However, this has devastating consequences on both the system you departed from and the system you arrive in, both of which suffer collateral damage to friendly and foes alike. Planetary colonies in these systems will suffer a moderate amount of devastation, and I won't say that the owners will be too happy with you, but it is very useful for getting out of dodge when you find yourself in a bit of trouble. Say, the Unbidden have shown up. Stellar ignition, on the other hand, allows you to inject highly excited dark matter into a star, dramatically boosting its output, or injecting it into the core of a gas giant, turning it into a protostar, kickstarting stellar fusion and allowing it to produce vast amounts of energy and physics, though not forever. This does have the added side effect of the accretion disk around the protostar tends to obliterate any moons, if there's any civilizations dwelling on these moons. That again might have consequences in the galactic community.
Hello everyone, my name is Markus and I'm a game designer on Stellaris. For the Nomad economy, there's many resources everyone will recognize from normal empires, but there's something new there, which is operational reserves. For Nomads, energy and minerals are not handled like normal. They're instead subsumed into this new situation, which tracks roughly how much you expend and how much you gain from any source, really. That means you do not deal with any deficits or similar things for energy and minerals. It's all handled through your operational reserves. They have three approaches that you can choose from, which are a neutral approach, which is just, I do not want to rock the boat. There's a saving approach, where say, I will throttle my economy, but that also means that I'll have less expenditures, so my situation will not deplete as quickly. Or I will burn all my resources, increasing my output for all of my specialists, but that takes more minerals and energy, so the situation will deplete faster. The situation also has several stages, which the first one is absolutely negative, and you do not want to be in the stage. It has pretty steep penalties for your Arkship as a whole. Meanwhile, if you manage to get more progress in your operational reserves, stage 2 and 3 have quite nice bonuses that will aid you in your travels among the stars. Contracts are the next pillar for Nomad economy. Contracts are missions you can take from non-nomadic empires to do certain tasks for them and get rewarded for doing so. On the other end of that spectrum, as a non-nomadic empire, you can issue those contracts to AI nomads. You can also ask nomads to harvest a rare resource and deliver it to you for a small fee when you want rare gases or volatile motes, for example, that you cannot otherwise reach. An important distinction of contracts as well is that they're very map-based, as in contracts will appear on the map for a nomad to accept them, and you can also, as a non-nomad, place them on the map by right-clicking on a system, saying, in this system I want to issue a contract to, for example, deep scan the planet here, to get resources that weren't available before. With all that said, we've accepted your contract to make a Nomads DLC, and I hope you will like our delivery.
We've always known that nomadic gameplay has been a feature that's been demanded by the Stellaris community for a long time, with some members of our modding community adamant that it couldn't be done without a fair few hacks. And I hope that this expansion lives up to expectations. The marketing team also want me to tell you to click the various buttons below the video, so if you do that, it'll make them happy. Thank you.
Thank you.